Ayan. So, good morning everyone. Good afternoon or good evening, whatever time you may be watching this. So, our topic for today is Gestalt Psychology, presented by yours truly, Louis Cruz. So, first, let's define what is Gestalt Psychology. Definition: Gestalt theory emphasizes the importance of sensory wholes and the dynamic nature of visual perception. The term Gestalt means form or configuration. Psychologists Max Wertheimer, Wolfgang Kohler, and Kurt Kafka studied perception and concluded that perceivers or learners are not passive but rather active. They suggest that learners do not just collect information as is, but they actively process and restructure data in order to understand it. The perceptual process. So in here, sinasabi lang sa Gestalt theory that we tend to look at something as a whole. We focus on its entirety. Hindi tayo tumitingin sa isang bagay on separate factors, on separate parts. Because if we focus on the whole thing, nakikita natin yung relationships, yung connections ng bawat bagay sa isa't isa. And from that, kapag pinaperceive natin yung connections and yung relationships, we tend to get an insight on how things function, on how things work. So kapag tinitingnan natin yung mga bagay na to, mas naiintindihan natin yung entirety ng isang bagay, kung paano ba siya nagfa-function, kung paano ba siya nagwo-work as a whole, rather than looking at separate things and hindi natin makikita kung ano yung bigger picture na pinapakita ng isang bagay. For example, you are faced with a problem. Titignan mo yung lahat ng bagay na nakakaapekto sa outcome na nangyari. And to find solution, titignan mo rin lahat ng factors na related dun sa outcome na nangyari. So, hindi ka lang titingin sa isang bagay, marami kang pagtutuunan. You analyze things and assess matters to conclude a solution, and after you gain an insight, you find a solution to the problem. Also, it says in here that the learners are not just passive, but rather active. So, when we think, when we analyze things, hindi lang siya basta-basta nangyayari. Hindi siya passive na we accidentally notice something. Our mind is active in thinking based from our perception kung ano ba yung applicable method or applicable strategy na pwede natin gamitin based sa mga nakikita nating bagay. So, in this theory, it actually contradicts Thorndike's behaviorism. From our past discussion, I believe Miss Haley discussed that meron siyang example na kinulong yung monkey, or I don't know what animal it is. Kinulong siya sa isang cage. And then, the animal accidentally pulled the lever, or na pabig niya yung leather and bumukas na yung cage. So in here, sa Gestalt Psychology, it actually contradicts that. It says that our mind is active. Nagper-perceive tayo sa mga bagay, hindi lang tayo basta passive na nakikita na we accidentally find the solution to things. Tayo mismo yung nag-iisip sa solution based from our perception, based sa nakikita natin. For example, nakakita ka, kung ikaw yung nasa kulungan, nakita mo yung lever. You think, what is the purpose of this? You tend to analyze things. Hinahanapan mo ng meaning yung isang bagay tuwing nakikita mo siya. And kapag nakita mo siya, doon na magkakaroon ng active participation yung sarili mo sa paghanap ng solution. Also, another factor kung bakit siya nagko-contradict sa behaviorism. And behaviorism, right, it says that meron tayong positive and negative reinforcement. In here, sa Gestalt Psychology, the theorists believe that there is no need of negative and positive reinforcement because understanding itself, finding the solution itself, is what keeps us motivated. Ayun na yung parang aha moment natin. Ayun na yung satisfaction. Doon na tayo nakakakuha ng satisfaction sa bagay na kapag nahanap natin yung solution. So, hindi na natin kailangan ng another drive, another thing na magbibigay sa atin ng motivation or drive para gawin yung isang bagay. Nagkakaroon lang tayo ng satisfaction solely from understanding. So, ayan, to further understand, so alam ko medyo naguguluhan pa kayo sa Gestalt psychology. To further understand, let's go to the principles of Gestalt psychology. So first is the law of proximity. The principle of proximity states that objects near each other tend to be viewed as a group. So if you focus on this diagram or on this image, you will see two groups of dots. So at first, in here, the first image, you will see a line or a line of circles. And the other one is a row of circles. Why? Because kung sino yung mas magkakalapit, kung sino yung mas close in proximity sa isa't isa, ayun yung tinitignan natin as a group. Dahil lapit-lapit nga sila eh. We perceive of it as a group na sama-sama. So to further see what I'm explaining, here is a colored one example. So as you can see here, mas malino na nating nakikita kung ano yung group sa isa't isa based on their proximity. So ayun lang sinasabi sa law of proximity. Kapag mas lapit-lapit yung mga bagay, our mind tend to think of it as a group. So for the next one is law of similarity. This Gestalt principle suggests that we naturally group similar items together based on elements like color, size, and shape, or orientation. So for the first one, itong black, we differentiate it based on its shape. Although similar sila ng color, black, ang differences nila is yung orientation or yung shape nila. So, based from that differences, tinitignan na natin ngayon kung ano yung magkakapareho. Hinahanap na natin yung similarity. Hinahanap na natin yung mga bagay na similar. So, kapag nakikita natin yung mga bagay na merong same similarity, we tend to group them as a whole, as a group. For example, in here, we see a line of squares, a line of circles, and a line of rectangles. Dahil dun sa similarities na meron sila, ginugroup natin sila sa isang bagay. Kinakategorize natin sila sa isang bagay. Diba? Tinawag na natin siyang squares, a line of squares, tinawag na natin siyang a line of circles, and tinawag na natin siyang a line of rectangles. For the next one, here naman, although similar siya in shape or in orientation, ang difference na naman niya is yung color. So again, based from that differences, nagkakaroon tayo ng presumption kung paano sila nagiging similar sa isa't isa based on the characteristics that they have in similar. For example, this green one, a line of green squares, a line of blue squares, and a line of red squares. So based sa similarity, doon natin sila ginugroup. Madali lang na maintindihin. So for next one is, dito mas evident na yung differences dahil hindi nilang shape yung differences nila, but also the color. So in here, you'll see two lines of blue circles and one line of green rectangle. So very simple lang kung paano siya intindihin. But so what? Ngayon, iniisip natin, ano naman ngayon? That is very obvious. Madali nga siyang intindihin, but what is the sense of this? If we look at things in a real-world scenario, it is very important in how we perceive things. For example, you see group of girls, right? You see group of girls walking across the street. So, they have the same uniform, law of similarity. They have the same gender, of course, group of girls, and Also, law of proximity, they are close to one another. They are walking side by side. So, based from these two laws, nakikita na natin, nagkakaroon tayo ng perception or presumption sa group of girls na yun that they might be classmates, they might be group of friends, dahil sa similarities na meron sila, dahil sa proximity, sa distance nila sa bawat isa. Nagkakaroon tayo ng presumption sa isang bagay na yun. What other things? For example, sa law of proximity and similarity, we see group of trees. Pag group of trees ba, ay ba yung tinatawag natin? Di ba hindi na? We call of it as a jungle. We call of it as a forest. Kapag nakita tayo ng maraming fish, we call it as a school of fish. If we see a lot of sheep, we tend to say it's a cattle. So kapag nagkakaroon na ng, pag meron ng yung isang bagay is magkakapareho na sila and lapit-lapit pa sila, nagkakaroon na tayo ng ibang insight sa bagay na yon. We call it something. Hindi na siya independent pa sa isang bagay. Nagkakaroon na tayo ng another understanding sa bagay na yon, and we categorize it. We categorize that thing as a whole, di ba? As I said before, we categorize it as a whole and not separate parts. Kapag nakikita natin yung similarities nila, nakikita natin yung proximity nila, tinitignan na natin sila as a whole, not as separate parts. So, here is another example of love similarity. These shapes. So, what can you perceive in this? So, as you can see, you'll see a rectangle, or I'm sorry, a triangle of a heart, and a rectangle of circles. So, since kinugroup natin yung similar na bagay sa isa't isa, nakakabuo tayo ngayon ng another shape. Nakikita tayo ng heart based from that similar aspects. And nakakakita rin tayo ng rectangle based on the similar aspects. Nakikita tayo ng rectangle of circles and a heart of triangles. So, for the next one is law of closure. This suggests that elements that form a closed object will be perceived as a group. We will even fill in missing information to create closure and make sense of an object. So, in here, sa law of closure, it is very important that we have prior knowledge to something, because we will perceive something based from it. For example, this one. Sa soccer ball, ayan, dinikta ko na isa siyang soccer ball. Dahil, meron ka ng presumption, meron ka ng prior knowledge na kung ano yung itsura ng soccer ball eh. And these shapes of octagons or whatever it is, resembles a football, right? Hindi natin siya nakikita as, kapag tinignan mo siya, hindi mo sasabihin, nakakakita ako ng mga lumulutong na octagon. Right? Hindi siya ganun eh. Nakikita natin siya as a football, because our mind already had this presumption of what a football looks like. And this image clearly resembles that. So, based from our prior knowledge, yung mind natin kino-close yung gaps. Right? Although wala namang clear figure, hindi pa ini-indent yung circle eh. Wala namang line na nag-a-assume na perfect circle siya. Pero, alam na natin kung ano yung itsura ng football. And therefore, nakikita na natin siya as a football. Kino-close na natin yung gaps. Nagkakaroon ng contour sa mga mata natin na nagiging bilog siya, although hindi siya talaga bilog. Kahit floating shapes lang siya. Dahil nga yun, sa prior knowledge na meron tayo. So for the next one, here in the middle, we don't see floating shapes. Right? We see an animal. We see a panda. Because, as I said again, we already have prior knowledge to things. Therefore, hindi natin siya nakikita as something new. Hindi natin siya nakita as something bizarre. It is familiar to us kasi dahil sa prior knowledge na meron tayo. Therefore, nakaka-conclude yung isipan natin, our mind conclude that this is a panda. Dahil it resembles the characteristics that a panda has, right? So for the last image. This one, you might see four floating cut circles. But if you focus closely, may makikita kang much bigger circle sa gitna. And nako-close yung gaps niya sa bawat corner. So, ayun lang yung sinasabi sa law of closure na we close the gaps and objects because we already have prior knowledge to it and naperperceive na natin siya automatically without clear figure. So in here, law of good continuation. Individuals have the tendency to continue contours whenever the elements of the pattern establish an implied direction. People tend to draw a good continuous line. So let's first focus on this first diagram. So if you look, kung titignan mo, yung letter A, sa tingin mo, saan siya nagko-continue? Sa letter C, right? Because similar lang din to sa law of closure. We already have a prior knowledge to it. Because this line may be compared to a strand of hair, a line of thread, and it is more natural to see it as A to C. Diba? Kasi ayun naman talaga ang natural flow ng hair, ayun naman talaga ang natural flow ng thread. So, it is unnatural kung titignan natin, kung sasabihin natin ang continuous line ng letter A is to letter B. It doesn't look pleasing, it doesn't look aesthetically correct kung titignan natin siya as ganun. Dahil, yung good continuous line natin, yung presumption natin sa isang bagay, is dapat ganito dahil ito na yung nakita natin before. Ito na yung presumed line na meron sa isipan natin. So, therefore, doon natin siya kino-continue. So, A to Z and D to B looks more correct to us. Also, what real-life examples to this? For example, nakakita ka ng kable ng kuryente or kable ng saksakan, kable ng electric fan, whatever. Tapos, nakita mo yung kable ng electric fan is natatakpan siya ng basahan. Right? So, hindi mo siya ina-assume na porket tinakpan ng basahan yung mahabang kable is naputol na yung kable. Right? Tinitignan mo siya as hindi, natatakpan lang pero it is still a good continuous line. Hindi natin tinitignan as yung line ng kable is connected siya sa basahan. Dahil natatakpan lang. Dahil alam natin yung characteristics na meron yung line and yung nung cordon. And it is continuous. Dire-diretso siya. Alam natin kung ano yung dulo at simula ng line. Therefore, hindi natin siya ina-assume as naputol dahil hindi lang natin nakikita yung natatakpan ng basahan. Meron na tayong prior knowledge doon. Therefore, nagkakaroon tayo ng good continuous line. Minsan nga, kahit natatakpan, di ba, nakikita natin sa ilalim na andun pa rin yung line ng cordon. So, for the next one, this lines of that resembles a circle. So, although hindi siya definite circle, nagko-close na yung gaps niya sa mind natin. There is a good continuous line. Kahit putol-putol siya, we already perceive of it as a circle. So, ayun lang sinasabi dito sa law of good continuation. Na, although merong hindrances, merong things na nagko-contradict sa isang bagay, nakikita pa rin natin siya as continuous because that is how we know it. That is how we perceive it based from our prior knowledge. We compare it to things na natural ang flow, natural ang continuation. Therefore, kahit magkaroon man siya ng confusion, magkaroon man siya ng um, disparities, nakikita pa rin natin kung ano yung dapat niyang ipakita. Nakikita pa rin natin yung line or yung continuation na dapat nating sundan. So for the next one is law of figure ground. We tend to pay attention and perceive things in the foreground first. A stimulus will be perceived as separate from its ground. So for this one, in here, sa first example, we might see two faces of a man or two silhouettes, white silhouettes of man facing one another. Because, for me mas madali siyang makita kasi if you look to it as a whole, kung titignan mo yung image as a whole, mas evident yung itsura ng dalawang lalaki or dalawang figure of a human facing one another. But if you focus closely, if you analyze attentively, you will see a cup or a vase. So, nangyayari siya. Titignan natin yung isang bagay and we often have two different perceptions of things. Meron tayong nakukonclude na isang bagay, meron din tayong nakukonclude na isang bagay. Depending kung ano yung pinagpo-focusan natin. So, for this next one, you might see, if magpo-focus ka more on the background, you might see a figure of a woman, right? Because for me, it is more evident Mas nare-resemble niya yung mukha ng babae. But if you focus attentively again, may makikita ka namang a man blowing a trumpet. So in here, sinasabi sa law of figure ground, it always depends on how we look at things, kung ano yung una mapaperceive natin sa isang bagay. So, there is always two separate ways to look at something. Hindi lang sa isang bagay. And sometimes this whole image or this whole thing na tinitignan natin might represent also two things. Hindi lang isang bagay yung pinapakita niya, but two. So, for the last law is the law of Fragance. This Gestalt principle suggests that we naturally group similar items together based on elements. Mali yung description. So, sorry. So, ako na lang, mag-i-explain na lang ako. So, here, sa law of Fragance, it is also called the law of simplicity. Why? Because, if you look at this, if you focus closely in this silhouette, this color black, hindi mo naman siya nakikita as another shape. Kapag tinignan mo siya, hindi mo masasabi na, ano to? Parang bagong shape to, ngayon ko lang to nakita, kakaiba to. Hindi. Nakikita natin siya as three different shapes. Because that is how we know things. Ayun na yung alam nating shapes na meron sa isipan natin. So although kahit mushy man siya, parang pinagsama halo-halo na siya, nakikita pa rin natin na siguro na patong-patong lang to. So in here, sa colored one, we can clearly see that it is three different shapes. So, pero kahit wala naman sa color, evident na tatlong types of shape siya. Dahil yon sa prior knowledge na meron din tayo na nakikita natin kung ano ba yung bagay na pinapakita niya based on its silhouette, sa silhouette niya, dahil meron naman na tayong prior knowledge sa isang bagay. Kahit silhouette lang siya and hindi siya malinaw, nakikita natin siya already. So now, we will focus on insight learning in relation to Gestalt psychology. So insight learning, Gestalt psychology adheres to the idea of learning takes place with discovery or insight. The insight learning was first developed by Wolfgang Kohler, in which he described experiment with apes, where the apes could use boxes and sticks as tools to solve problems. So in this experiment of that Wolfgang conducted, meron siyang kinulong na apes. na ape, sorry, isang ape sa isang cage. And then, meron siyang nilagay na fruit at top of the cage. And the ape could not reach it. Pero, ang ginawa ni Wolfgang is, binigyan niya yung ape ng boxes and sticks. So from that, na-perceive nung ape based from its perception na kapag pinagpatong-patong niya yung box and pinagdikit-dikit na yung sticks, maaabot niya na yung fruit. So again, unlike Thorndike's theory, hindi lang basta na-discover nung ape kung paano makuha yung fruit. Nag-isip siya actively. 'Di ba? As I said again before, it is not passive, it is active. So nag-isip yung ape based from its perception. Tinignan niya kung yung height ba ng box, kapag tumungtong siya ron, maaabot niya. Kapag pinagdugtong-dugtong niya ba yung mga stick, at some point maaabot niya yung fruit. So, nagkaroon siya ng insight from that. Dahil sa perception niya, dahil sa kung paano niya tinignan yung bagay as a whole, tinignan niya yung height ng cage, tinignan niya yung height ng fruit, tinignan niya yung length ng stick, tinignan niya yung height ng boxes, tinignan niya lahat ng aspects na meron sa problem na yon, and tinignan niya as a whole. And therefore, nung tinignan niya yung relationship ng bawat bagay, nakapahanap siya ng solution. Nakagain siya ng insight. So, that is insight learning. We look at perception, tinitignan natin yung perception natin, and based on our perception, nakakagain tayo ng insight sa problem that we are currently facing. So, for example, another example in real life is, for example, merong book at top of the shelf. So, obviously, kung mataas yung shelf, hindi mo siya maaabot. So, what solution do you think is best? Kukuha ka ng chair or kukuha ka ng pwede mong tungtungan para makuha yung book. Pero, it's not simple as that. You'll consider many things. Tinitignan mo pa rin yung bagay as a whole. Tinitignan mo ikaw, tinitignan mo yung aspects mo kung kahit tumungtong ka ba ron sa upuan, maaabot mo pa rin ba? Ganun ka ba katangkad? Or kapag kinuha ko ba tong upuan, tama lang ba yung height na meron yung upuan or kulang pa din para maabot ko yung book? We look at the relationship of many things. Tinitignan natin kung yung connections sa isang bagay, yung mga connections sa mga bagay, and kung paano natin siya i-relate sa isa't isa, kung magiging successful ba yung magiging outcome ng method na gagawin natin or ng strategy na try natin gawin. So, what other examples? For example, gawin natin yung example similar dun sa example sa behaviorism, yung kinulong. For example, ikaw naman yung kinulong sa kulungan or sa isang kwarto na lang para hindi naman traumatic sa'yo. Kinulong ka sa isang kwarto, bata ka pa lang, tapos may hawak kang susi. But, wala kang prior knowledge, hindi mo alam yung purpose ng key kung para saan ba yun. You just see it as a piece of metal. Right? But, based from your perception, tinignan mo yung shape ng key. And nakakita ka ng keyhole. And you perceive na similar in shape sila. Law of similarity. Tapos, nung pinasok mo yung key sa keyhole, bumukas. So, ayun yung insight na na-gain mo based from your perception, based sa pag-analyze mo, based on your visual perception. So, again, as I've also said, hindi niya rin kailangan again ng positive and negative reinforcement because yung malaman mo pa lang yung solution sa isang bagay nung nagkaroon ka pa lang ng understanding, the insight itself is the most satisfying factor sa bagay na yun. Nung nakalabas ka, ayun yung satisfying factor. Hindi naman na siya binigyan ng candy kung makakalabas siya. Hindi naman na siya tinakot para magpumilit siyang makalabas. He just used his mind actively. Therefore, nung nakapag-isip-isip siya and ginamit niya yung perception niya, nakalabas siya ng kwarto gamit yung key na ginamit niya sa keyhole. So, that is insight learning. So, for the next one, or the last one, I guess, is Gestalt principle and the teaching learning process. So in here, the teaching learning process, the 6 Gestalt principles not only influence perception, but they also impact on learning. Other psychologists like Kurt Lewin expounded on Gestalt psychology, his theory focusing on life space adhered to Gestalt psychology. He said that an individual has inner and outer forces that affect his perceptions and also his learning. Inner forces include his own motivation, attitudes, and feeling. Outer forces may include the attitude and behavior of the teacher and classmates. All these forces interact and impact on the person's learning. So, kagaya ng paulit-ulit kong sinasabi kanina, right? Na tinitignan natin yung isang bagay as a whole. So, similar to tuwing nagtuturo tayo sa isang estudyante. For example, tinitignan natin si student sa lahat ng factors na meron na pwedeng maka-affect sa learning niya. Yung inner forces, yung motivation niya, yung willingness niyang matuto, yung attitude niya and yung feelings niya about this subject. Kung yung sa tinuturo ba natin, is it sensitive? Is it not engaging? Is it not motivating for him? Tinitignan natin yon. Also, tinitignan din natin yung outer forces. Tinitignan natin yung behavior niya, yung behavior ng nasa paligid niya, yung environment. Maraming factors tayong tinitignan para ma-perceive kung paano makaka-apekto lahat ng bagay sa pagkatuto ni student. So, ayun lang yung sinasabi sa Gestalt principle na we have to look of it na dapat tinitignan natin lahat ng bagay. Tinitignan natin yung relationship, yung cause and effect ng mga bagay para makapag-conclude tayo ng solution. So, kapag nakita na natin na, kunyari, ganito yung face ni student na problem, hindi siya na-engage, nakakapaghanap tayo ng solution doon and we fix it. Obviously. Hala naman nakita ka ng problem, hindi mo pa inayos, di ba? So, ayun lang yung sinasabi dito. So, example is, ano bang example? For example, merong student na nagsastruggle siya sa math. So, we look at the inner and outer forces of the students na present sa student. Titignan natin yung inner and outer forces na present sa kanya. For example, yung motivation niya. Active ba si student tuwing mathematics? Engaged ba siya? Parang willing ba siya matuto ng mathematics? Meron ba siyang prior trauma when it comes to math? Or baka hindi ganun kalaki yung amount ng prior knowledge na meron siya kaya nahihirapan ng sobra si student. So, kino-consider natin yun. Also, tinitignan din natin yung outer forces. Tinitignan natin yung environment. Kaya ba hindi matuto si student? Kasi ang ingay-ingay ng katabi niya, dinadala siya ng katabi niya. Or baka hindi matuto si student kasi ang init-init. Hindi siya makapag-focus sa lesson. So, tinitingnan natin lahat ng bagay na nakaka-apekto para kapag tinitingnan kasi natin yung mga bagay ng sama-sama, doon natin nakikita yung solution and nagkakaroon tayo ng mas malaking solution sa isang bagay. So, ayun lang yung sinasabi sa teaching and learning process. So, that's all. I hope you learned something today. And that's all. Thank you. Goodbye.